Ways you can spot and ask. I have used 2 ways. They have the best poker faces. Very non-emotional in what they exhibit on their faces. I'm not saying they don't feel it, but they're very good at not showing it. Additionally, I listen for their tonality. Generally, they have a little more space between their words and their tone's lower, like mine is. If we're going to take it to the extreme, anyone ever met that yoga instructor? Right? Okay, that's the tonality, right? Taken to the extreme. Super calm, lots of space between the words. So you can listen for that actually on the phone and begin to diagnose it relatively quickly. And then the lack of showing much emotion on the face is another way you can pick out a messed up personality. C, critical thinkers. If my math is right, and if I've got a critical thinker in the audience, please just go ahead and check my math. I'm happy for you to do it. Critical thinkers make up 8% of our population. Critical thinkers are people who are very concerned about details, facts, figures, analysis, and their need-driven behavior is to be right. And I mean exactly right. So where are some professions or departments we might find critical thinkers? Accountants, that's a great one. Engineers, surgeons, very often attorneys, yeah. IT professionals most often have a whole lot of critical thinker in them, right? It doesn't take you too long to figure it out. I'm going to talk to the stereotype, the extreme. Doesn't take too long to figure out the ultimate geek you've ever met in your life. He probably has a lot of critical thinker in him. Because there is such a need to be exactly right, by the way, they always were in school. They were the kids that made the best grades, right? They can have difficulty making decisions because why? It can almost never be right enough for an extreme critical thinker. I call it analysis paralysis. Have we all seen this in action? Either happen to us if we are a critical thinker or we see it in others. Now then, but the things that make them so great in a company is that they do bring that high level of analysis. No stone is going unturned with these people. They will find the details that some of the other personality styles just aren't that interested in getting, and make sure people aren't making a huge mistake because they're going to check it out very, very thoroughly. Critical thinkers aren't big on conflict, but they will disagree with you on points of fact and details that they absolutely know to be wrong. They have no problem speaking up about that. That's one reason I don't like that label of compliant. It sounds like no backbone, and that's not at all what that a descriptor should imply. What it's meant to imply is these are our biggest rule keepers because they want to make sure it's done by the book. This is your critical thinker. So now if I'm an I style who's pretty excitable and fun and not that big on the details, and I'm communicating with a critical thinker, what can go wrong?
Everything.
Other than everything, right? Right. Yeah, absolutely. If you are not giving me enough details and analysis and background information, I think you are a flake. I think you are a flake. However, on the other hand, if I'm a critical thinker, and I am just killing the influencer with details and questions and all this, what do they think? God, get a life, take a pill, picky, picky, picky. So the overextension for your critical thinker is that they can become overly critical, overly picky, and therefore nothing gets done. From a critical thinker's perspective, this is why they are slower decision makers, because they've got to gather all the information. It's got to be logical and it's got to make sense to them. By the way, which personality style is it okay to touch, or behavior style? Eyes. They're fine with it. You may eventually, and by the way, I'm not suggesting that we start touching all of our coworkers or prospects. However, so let's just clarify that right now. However, this guy's going to be okay with maybe a hug around the shoulders or something if it's appropriate. Whereas this, eventually you may have a close enough relationship, but that would not be a good way to go. But if you're an influencer, you think everybody wants a hug, right? Because we want hugs. So that's what I think. So let's talk about how who's beginning to think, I've got a good idea of at least two of these that I probably, two of these categories where I probably fit, right? Most of us beginning to get a pretty good idea on that. Okay, so what I want to share with you now is that we will communicate in the behavior style that is natural and most comfortable to us. Makes sense, right? If you want to enhance your communication, your ability to sell, which in my belief is, again, good communication, that's authentic, and helps people make the right decisions, you need to modulate your behavioral style slightly to match who you are trying to communicate with. Does anyone think that that sounds like I'm trying to pull a trick on somebody? No, it is not about manipulating people, but it is about subordinating your natural orientation for the good of who you're trying to communicate with. The way I like to say it is you need to subordinate your ego for the good of your prospect, customer, boss, customer, because in the end, who benefits by you communicating well? Everybody does, right? But if you especially have an objective that you need to have accomplished through the communication, let's not worry about the fact that we're going to have to get a lot more details for the C, right? Actually, it is to your advantage to recognize that and utilize it so that they can have what they need to be comfortable. And that feeling of who I click with comes from how easy it is to communicate. So here's some things to do. D's and I's, we've got louder voices. We're kind of big with our body language. If I'm dealing with a C or an S, but especially an S style, who's softer spoken and more reserved, bring it down a notch. It's not that hard. Bring it down a notch. However, if I'm a C style, I love my facts, I love my figures, I love my details, and I'm going in to try and share something with a dominant style personality and get a decision made, what's my tendency in that conversation?
Right.
To overwhelm them with all the details. I'm being filmed, but I'm going to go ahead and share the fact that I'm a DI and I'm married to a wonderful CS attorney husband. Therefore, when I ask him, what time is it, honey? He will tell me how the clock was built and in which country the watch was manufactured. Or when I ask him another question, he starts with so many details, I have to stop him and go, I gotta have a topic sentence right now because I just cannot stay with that many details without knowing where I'm going. These folks are very bottom